I've been reading a lot from this book since it came out at the end of September, and I've done things with sort of slides and music and so on, and it's been very rigid. So I'll just be a bit random for as I'm the support warm-up act. I'd like to start with a poem that I may have read out loud before. I don't know, but it's just picking up on the bone theme. This is called Wishbones. She lays out wishbones, boiled and polished, or painted gold with leaf green ribbons at each empty sitting. Soon they will snap like twigs, like innocence, teaching the power of will and dominion over bird and beast, a feast for winter. Upstairs, the tooth fairy, black-mouthed at the window, sucks dreams scented with violets and mothballs from a room bare of all but stripped beds and damp pillowcases. And outside, splints pitch from coarse loam, catching pale moonlight. Sleep, little one, sleep. The night is big and lonely, your garden's growing pale. It's a book that makes sense as a whole. It's a book about the house that this picture's from. It's the house that I was born in, and it was in our family from 5 years before I was born to about 2 years ago. And I was born in the reflection of this mirror that remained until the house went in my parents' bedroom. So although the bed was changed a few times, I was born about there. Which is kind of weird every time I went back to the house. And as a child I never went in my parents' bedroom much, because that's one of those places you don't go, isn't it, your parents' bedroom? But every time I did go in there I thought, this is where I came from. Which was a very odd feeling, and remained it until we sold the house. I'd like to read, having introduced it like that first poem was a poem about the sort of childhood fears that I remember. But what I'd like to read is a couple of poems about the muse. I last read last weekend at a conference of writers in education, and I went to a session on muses, and that was kind of interesting, in the idea that, you know, however wonderful your life is, the muse has to remain something beyond, and it's often just an idea that's wrapped up in the sort of poetry of love, I suppose. And I find myself doing that, so I'd like to read a couple of those that I tend not to have read when I'm talking more about the house. So this is called Doppler, and I won't explain the Doppler effect. You may know of the things overlapping and passing and changing in configuration. We met on the darkest night of the year, when the sky was tattooed with stars that needled space to black streets. A few snowflakes flicked from invisible clouds, caught in my hair and pricked my upturned face, but didn't settle. And I thought of light and distance, clear moments, millennia in the making. A single flake caught my tongue. I found my arms wrapped tight around a dream of a blue shift spun from nowhere, from the vast, incalculable chance of time, but scattered before my fingers closed. There were glow stars on my ceiling, a print on my pillow like the skeleton of a small hand. I bend to study charts, consider lines and angles, calculate the distance between void and memory, but find nothing. Galaxies pass like night and snow. And perhaps a more obvious muse poem. I was in. I'm just going to show off now. I did a launch in Italy recently, and the place where it was, their symbol is the enclosed garden, the Hortus Conclusus on their city crest, and it's a place where 9 years ago my wife and I got married. So it was lovely to go back there and do this, read and give a talk at this poetry festival there. So this is called Hortus Conclusus. the coldest August of the century, and trellises bulge damp with blown fuchsias. We speak of our usual subjects, poetry, time, distance. Almost touching, I am afraid to look you in the eye. A poor would-be suitor, I cannot sing, nor did I bring lute or psaltery. More man in black than Orfeo, you know I do not offer courtly metaphor or coarse euphemism, yet your garden remains closed. But stop. Just there, slowly my world tilts upside down. I reach and gently lift a spider from your hair. Possibly two more, I think, so we'll go for, I'll read the really miserable one last. I'll read this one. I have read this one a lot of late, and when I eventually get my greatest hits album together, this one might be on it, because it seems to be going down quite well. I really wanted to be a rock star like everyone of my generation, and failed miserably. But, you know, I've had my rock and roll moments. And every so often something is the new rock and roll, and it was poetry a while back, and I missed out on that if it was, I don't know. But anyway, this sort of puts together assorted little bits and pieces from the past nearly 60 years. It's called After Party. It was a big house, a lot of land, and I couldn't remember who'd invited me. There were tyre tracks on the lawn and on the carpet, but the party was winding down, tangled bodies on couches, on the landing, in the flower beds, leaving just a few of us, jittery with crystals and capsules. Someone said, "Read us one of your poems." So I pulled out a couple of books and flipped through dog-eared pages. But I didn't recognise any of the words, and my eyes blurred over unfamiliar phrases, and there was an awkward, jerky silence. Until someone said, "Look, are you a poet or what?" But by then my mouth was dry as I licked my sour powdered fingers, leafing frantically through hazy titles. I couldn't focus on them, and everyone was getting restless, and all I could think of as the room spun sideways was your smile as you'd left. Hours earlier, your arm resting lightly round someone else's waist. I think I'm reading quicker than I normally do. You're all thinking, great, it's the last one now, but it's the penultimate one. Because time. And one of the things this poem's about, this book's about, is the way time isn't linear, and it just sort of piles up and wears thin, and all these sort of things. And so, penultimately, I'll read this about a time long gone, and only some of you will remember it. Can you remember a time that we'd switch on the news and be absolutely terrified at the threat of nuclear Armageddon? I mean, it was a long time ago, wasn't it? Hang on. No, I grew up in Plymouth. This house is in Plymouth, and it's within earshot of the weekly nuclear alarm test. To an oversensitive, over-imaginative young boy growing up in the 60s and 70s, and into the 80s with the era of threads and ducking and covering and painting your windows white and all that. These things used to keep you awake. This is it's called Lacunae. It was after the war, or perhaps in its final days. I was young and don't remember clearly, just a house amongst ruins, more felt than seen. There was a bomb in the cellar, cold and silent, nothing like the cartoons with a sparkler fuse or a clock to stop at the last crazy minute. We didn't go down there. Fear and dust sealing the flimsy door, and the government sent a leaflet, which we lost, detailing emergency procedures. At 11:30 each Monday they tested the sirens, my mother tensing at their revenant howl, their reminders of past raids. We got on with life. But at night I'd lie sleepless, imagining that beast beneath the thin skin of floorboards, dozing, fat as a whale, its pinprick eyes slightly open. And I will finish now, I mentioned my mother's sort of tensing, which she did all through her life. They moved to this house in 1955, and until her passing 2 years ago on Monday, she said that whenever this siren went off, it reminded her of being a girl in Manchester during the Blitz. It just had that echo for her all the time, because her father, who lived in this tiny house with us, was the estate manager at Manchester Hospital, so he wasn't off away fighting, he was sort of looking after livestock and all sorts of things. And so also my mother didn't sort of head off out the city with many children of her age. She was there when Manchester was flattened, and she still had that in the back of her mind week after week. But I'm going to read this called Mother's Day, and it's for my mother, and it's not Mother's Day for ages, but it was written the first Mother's Day after, first one that I had without a mother, and it's about those blokes that buy flowers and chocolates and stuff, and they're very unused to buying flowers and chocolates, and look like some aliens put them on. It's called Mother's Day. The town is thronged with men whose hands are unfamiliar with flowers. The red and gold stigmata, undesired, undeserved, are a martyrdom standing out on a grey Sunday. The sweet perfume of sanctity mingling with links and sweat. In nearby rooms, mothers await the devotional, the kiss of peace, the annual communion of chocolates and tea. Against this procession I bear your braids, shorn at 19 and stored in a chest with tissue and mothballs, limp across my arms like Bartholomew's flayed skin.